safe house in town.
As quietly as possible. I don't want to come back to the beach and find the place crawling with Germans. If they spot the sub before you blow those guns, me and my team will be stuck here.
I can do quiet.
You'd better. All right, that's our cue. Okay, Fairburn. There are the searchlights. Show me what you can do. We aren't landing with those searchlights up. Take them out.
Won't be a problem. Should scout the shoreline with binoculars. Spot my targets.
Zoom.
Hey, look.
So, take a shot, or are you just gonna enjoy the scene?
Over there.
Just one left. Take them down. Nazis aren't gonna kill themselves. Take out the lights.
Look, over there.
Oh, Spencer. Hope I remember how to play the game. Man. One last summer.
You just enjoying my company? Is that it? Come on, take out the lights.
Let's see the light. Oh. All right, see you on the other side, Sullivan. jacked.
Got to secure the beachhead. Make the landing zone safe for the Rangers. Better get to it. Going to have to go prone to get ahead.
Karen had been totally shocked and appalled by this confession and decided right then that she wanted nothing to do with him and told him he'd have to leave it.
Should be able to climb my way up there. Get a good vantage point down on the beach. Hey, look over there.
No, I knew they were having beta this weekend and next weekend, but I thought it was only like if you bought the game you could play the beta. I didn't, even though I know it said open beta, I'm just an idiot. Because it said like open beta, and then like the button said like 99.99 or 69.99. There was no like just download beta. It was probably under the ... or the more options. So that's what I'm saying. Oh, it's full. Two hours. I think it's clear. Slide down.
Can't give away my position. Should take him down quietly.
Und plötzlich explodiert der Himmel. Warum gönnen uns die verdammten Alliierten zur Abwechslung nicht mal eine ruhige Nacht? Vielleicht warte ich noch ein bisschen. Mal sehen, wie lange ich dir ein Päuschen gönnen kann.
Stop.
Be sure you sweat like a pig all over everything. But when you're done, don't bite and end it. Okay, let's get into today's story.
He'll be part of a patrol. Should keep to the shadows. Don't want to get caught out.
Cherie was short with dyed blonde hair and white eyes. Mornings were always a bit crazy in the Moore household. Cherie had 2 young children from a previous marriage, and so she had to get them ready for school. Bruce was always in a hurry to get to the business they owned. Bruce leaned down and kissed his wife, and Cherie's face lit up. But when she got a good look at Bruce's shirt, her face completely changed. Cherie reached up to the front pocket of Bruce's shirt, and she pulled out a huge wad of cash. Then she held the money up to Bruce and gave him a look like, I can't believe what you're doing. Everyone who knew Bruce knew he always carried a whole bunch of cash right in his front shirt pocket. Bruce said it was to make change.
It's just weird because
It was crazy to have that much cash just out in the open like that. It was like you're inviting to a rob. And Cherie really wanted him to stop doing it. But Bruce smiled and took the money back from Cherie, put it right back in his pocket. He told her to keep the news, to slow down, and walk outside to see. Bruce succeeded right down as he went from the changing news and food. But he knew this whole Mexican winter was his, Bruce was enjoying the second holiday. He thought Like today, the super second.
This grass could make some useful cover.
Dorf hat die richtige Idee. Geben wir ihnen verdammt nochmal was, worüber sie sauer sein können. Mistkerle. Hoffentlich kriegen sie, was sie verdienen. Ihr brutales Vorgehen hat uns gute Männer gekostet.
Bruce had spent the last 30 years of his life
Shit.
looking forward to promoting towards the end. Time, he almost stage, and it was one of the largest employers in the history. In the 3 decades that Bruce worked there, he done really well. He's successful in the
Sie müssen es irgendwo versteckt haben. Bestimmt haben sie es noch nicht über den Kanal transportiert. Wir müssen weitersuchen.
Oh, right.
He knew a lot of people saw this yard as nothing more than dump. Place that was built with junk that had no use. But Bruce saw potential in that junk. He knew that with hard work and full care, almost any car part could be made as good as new. And in some ways, Bruce felt like he owed his entire life to the discarded car parts on that lot. Because when he had bought the salvage yard, it ended up giving him way more than just a potential retirement plan. Years earlier, when he just become the new owner of the yard, Bruce had gone to the office to meet his employees. A young, blonde bombshell who took care of the financial books for the salvage yard almost stopped him in his tracks. Her name was Cherie, and Bruce could just not stop staring at her. So, not long after that day in the office, he had asked Cherie out. And as he'd gotten to know Cherie more, he had fallen in love with every aspect of her, not just her looks. Cherie was kind and caring in a way that Bruce just wasn't used to. He had actually been married 3 times before, and he always felt like his ex-wives had been purposely cruel to him. But Cherie was different. She spent her time when she wasn't working and just trying to help people. She took care of her 2 young kids, she had worked for years in the local retirement community, and she did everything she could to advocate for victims of child abuse. Cherie had witnessed child abuse at different periods of her life, and she felt compelled to stand up for kids who could not stand up for themselves. And was a dream to someday make or raise enough money to start a nonprofit organization that was dedicated to helping victims of child abuse across the country. When Bruce and Cherie had really begun dating, it became clear pretty quickly that they both wanted to spend the rest of their lives together. So earlier that year, in 1999, they had got married. And Bruce had begun to see the salvage yard as an opportunity for Cherie to realize her dream of starting her own nonprofit. So not long after the wedding, Bruce and Cherie had bought out Bruce's business partner, had taken over full ownership of the salvage yard themselves. They hoped the money they would make from the yard would allow Bruce to fully walk away from GM and enable Cherie to become a full-time advocate. Bruce took in one more breath of fresh air in the darkness of the office. Inside, it looked like the place had not been updated or even really cleaned in years. There was walls, boxes, supplies, files sticking out all over the place, and there were all these beat-up metal tables with ashtrays on them that were overflowing with cigarette butts, but it still felt like Bruce's happy place. Bruce said hello to the woman who now handled the financial books for him, but you could tell she was upset about something. Bruce Bruce didn't understand what John's problem was. After all, Bruce was a pretty laid-back guy who did his best to get along with everyone. But eventually, Cherie had told Bruce that she knew why John didn't like him. Cherie and John had once dated. And even though Cherie had broken things off, she believed John still had a thing for her, and so he was jealous when she and Bruce had started dating. Even with that news, Bruce still tried to get along with John. He felt like it wasn't right to just get rid of John, simply because at one point he had dated Cherie. But after a short time of working together, John had basically given Bruce no choice. The two men just kept clashing at work, and then Bruce discovered that John was selling parts from the yard to his friends and family for way below asking price. And then John had just begun outright stealing things from the yard. So Bruce had fired John. But stealing didn't stop. John knew every way in and out of the salvage yard, and even though Bruce couldn't prove it, he was pretty sure John was still ripping him off. Bruce clutched the phone tight and heard John's voice on the other line. Within a few seconds, the two men were screaming at each other on the phone. Bruce accused John of stealing, and John denied that he had done anything, and he attacked Bruce for firing him out of sheer jealousy. Finally, Bruce slammed the phone down and took a deep breath. Then he walked outside, made his way through the salvage yard, and began to look for a car to work on to take his mind off the fight he'd just gotten into. And after spending a large chunk of his day outside in the beautiful fall weather working on cars, Bruce did feel a lot better. So by the time Bruce got home that night, with Cherie and her two kids, he was able to stay calm, and he told Cherie about the phone call he'd had with John. Cherie said she was sorry he had to deal with that, but she couldn't help but feel a bit responsible for the trouble John continued to cause her husband. But Bruce told her, don't worry, it was not her fault at all. Later that night, after Cherie and Bruce got the kids to bed, Cherie suddenly had this huge smile come across her face, and before Bruce could ask her why she was so happy, she just grabbed his hand and led him into their small home office. There, Cherie went to the computer on the old wooden desk and turned it on and waited for the dial-up internet to connect. Then, after it connected, Cherie, still with her huge grin on her face, pulled up an internet chat room and pointed at the screen for Bruce to see. Back in 1999, the internet was really just starting to take hold in the United States, and more people than ever before were connecting with each other online, mostly through instant messaging services and also through chat rooms where people could meet others who shared the same interests. Being 20 years younger than her husband, Cherie had grown up loving video games, she'd gotten into computers as soon as they became common in households across the U.S., and now she loved the internet. And recently, Cherie had found a number of chat rooms where she said she could talk to people from all over the country and maybe even all over the world who were also advocates for victims of child abuse. And so that was what she was pointing at on the screen, was one of those chat rooms. Cherie told John that she believed the internet and her ability to connect with these other people would make it a lot easier for her to learn the best ways to establish and run the advocacy group she had dreamed about starting. Bruce looked at the screen, then smiled, hugged Cherie, and gave her a kiss. He didn't really understand the point of the internet or chat rooms, but Cherie knew way more about it than he did, so if she believed the internet could be an effective tool, then he was happy for her. That night, as they lay in bed, Bruce and Cherie talked about how they felt like their future plans were really starting to fall into place. Bruce was sure he'd be able to make the salvage yard his only job soon, and Cherie would get to help more children on a much larger scale. They just had to keep working hard and being patient, and eventually everything would work out just like they had planned. On the afternoon of Monday, November 8th, 1999, so a couple of weeks after Bruce and John had fought on the phone, Bruce headed out to the salvage yard. He was exhausted because he'd worked a late shift at General Motors the night before, but he still wanted to go into the yard to check on business and to spend some time working on his car. Bruce drove through the gate and parked his car in front of the office. He stepped outside, breathed in the fresh air, and immediately began to feel a bit more awake. Then he walked into the office and saw his wife sitting behind the front counter. Cherie smiled, stood up, walked around the counter, and gave her husband a big kiss. She had opened up the salvage yard that morning after she dropped off the kids at school. That way Bruce could get some extra sleep after his late night at GM the night before. Cherie said it had been a pretty quiet day so far. Then she told Bruce she'd see him later at home. After Cherie was gone, Bruce checked in with the one other employee who was in the office, and then when he went in there, the one employee was still inside, and so Bruce told them they could head home and that swivel chair and began digging through a stack of papers on the front counter, looking for a few forms that he needed to sign. About an hour later, at 6 p.m., Bruce was still inside the office doing paperwork when the office phone rang. Bruce answered, and he heard his wife's voice on the other line. She told him that the kids really wanted pizza from their favorite restaurant for dinner that night, and so she would call the order in if he could just pick it up on the way home. Bruce said that sounded great and that he would, and that he'd close up shop in just a few minutes. Cherie told Bruce she loved him, and they both hung up. Bruce pulled out a cigarette and lit it, then exhaled a puff of smoke, and then glanced back down at the paperwork on his desk to make sure he'd finished everything he wanted to. But as he was doing this, suddenly the front door to the office swung open, someone stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind him. A little after 8 p.m., so 2 hours after Cherie had talked to Bruce on the phone about pizza, she paced around her living room. The kids were sitting in the kitchen, still waiting for pizza, and Bruce had still not arrived home. Cherie went to the kitchen, grabbed the phone, and called the salvage yard. She told the kids that Bruce must have been delayed with the last-minute customer, but as she sat there, the phone just kept on ringing and nobody picked up. So eventually, Cherie hung up, called Bruce's brother, and asked if he had heard from Bruce. The two brothers talked all the time, especially about football, and Cherie knew there was a big Monday night football game. But Bruce's brother surprisingly said they actually had not spoken at all that day. But Bruce's brother could tell Cherie sounded very worried, so he tried to calm her down. He said Bruce was most likely somewhere between the salvage yard and the pizza place, or maybe he had already gotten the pizza and he was on his way home. But either way, he was probably just fine. So after that, they hung up. But Cherie did not feel his phone. So she grabbed the kids, put them in her car, and drove to the pizza place. But she didn't pass Bruce on the way, and when she got to the restaurant, they told her that Bruce had never come in to pick up the order. Cherie grabbed the pizza and then raced. This did seem pretty strange. So he told Cherie that he and his wife would go right now over to the salvage yard to just check on things. A few minutes after that phone call, Bruce's brother and his wife drove through the open gate at the salvage yard, and right away they spotted Bruce's car still parked out in front of the office. Now, the sight of his car made Bruce's brother actually feel better. He figured Bruce must have gotten caught up at work, and he must have just been on the phone with somebody else when Cherie had tried to call him. Bruce's brother and his wife stepped out of their car and walked up to the office door, and right away they froze. Because when they looked down, they could see the front door to the office was actually cracked open a bit. They knew Bruce so this was a big red flag. Bruce's brother and his wife but nobody answered from the phone. So the knowledge was brother went to go over to the office. Right away they saw a cigarette company doing something. Then they confronted them on the door, and they did. It was quickly. Bruce crawled out to the door.
Wir bleiben hier, bis wir es gefunden haben. Verdammte Partisanen. About an hour after the 911 call, Detective Sergeant Ives Petrofta of the Genesee County Sheriff's Department drove down a dirt road towards the salvage yard. And as Petrofta got closer, he began to look around and think to himself, the salvage yard was he's kind of innocent. Sky, creating paths, hidden corners everywhere, that made it impossible to find there. I don't really know if they were actually there. Petrofta drove through the open gate and parked his car in the office. Welcher Idiot hat zugelassen, dass diese Informationen gestohlen wurden? Der müsste hier eigentlich im Müll wühlen.
Have something important on him. Should check the body. You never know what a body can be hiding.
The officer was standing inside the office
the office. The tran's office is not like a totally group of people, even though there were only a few members of the state firm when this group was set. The county detective introduced himself, and a woman from the crime lab who had short hair and a quiet voice motioned for them to join her on the other side of the front counter. Petrovka and Shanley took a few steps across the office, holding the pile of cigarette butts on the floor, and walked around the counter. There, they saw Bruce's body, and by Bruce's head was another pile of cigarette butts. The forensics officers crouched down over Bruce's body. She was using pieces of one-sided tape to pull potential hair samples from Bruce's shirt. But Petrovka barely noticed what she was doing because he was stunned by the amount of blood covering Bruce's chest, floor, and the wall behind Bruce's body. Even at first glance, it was clear to the detectives that Bruce had been shot at close range with a powerful weapon, most likely a shotgun. But no expended shells had been found at the scene. The forensics officers cataloged and stored hair samples from Bruce's shirt, and then the woman with the quiet voice motioned for the detectives to follow her back to the front door. They walked around the counter, and then the woman told them to take a look at the office from where they were standing. And when they began doing this, she asked them if anything jumped out at them. The one thing that really jumped out at Detective Petrovka was what a mess the place was. There were papers overflowing from boxes, there were ashtrays that looked like they hadn't been emptied in weeks, scattered all across the tables, and grease and oil stains all over the floor. The forensics officer said Petrovka was exactly right. The place was a complete mess, which is why she was surprised that they hadn't found any fingerprints or physical evidence on the front door where the killer would have had to enter and exit. And she said what was even stranger was that they had not found any footprints in the grease and oil stains on the floor. Normally, those types of stains were very effective at capturing prints. And so Petrovka and Shanley assumed, based on this information, that whoever had killed Bruce must have taken time to really wipe the place down afterwards. The forensics officer said that would explain the door being totally full of prints, but she didn't find any evidence that the floor had been clean. Instead, she thought whoever had killed Bruce had known where the grease stains were on the floor, and so they had just avoided stepping in it. Petrovka glanced over at Shanley with a very knowing look in his face. They both knew if that theory checked out, if somebody knew where these stains were, then that meant they were very likely looking for someone who knew Bruce and who was familiar with this object. So the detectives stepped outside to talk to the people who had found Bruce's body, his brother and his sister-in-law. Inside the office, Bruce's brother and his wife had pretty much just been in shock and had barely even spoken to each other. But when Petrovka asked Bruce's brother why they had been at the salvage yard in the first place, he told the detective that Bruce's wife, Cherie, had called him twice in a panic because Bruce had not come home from work. So he and his wife said they would go check out the salvage yard to see what was going on, and that's when they found Bruce's body. As he spoke, Bruce's brother choked back tears. He told the detectives that he'd already called his mother to tell her that Bruce was dead, but that he couldn't bring himself to say what had happened to him. So he just told her that they thought Bruce might have had a heart attack. After speaking with Bruce's brother and sister-in-law for several minutes, Petrovka and Shanlian felt like these two witnesses were telling the truth. It was way too early to actually rule anyone or anything out, but the detectives felt like they'd learned everything they could from Bruce's brother, his wife, for the time being. And so now the detectives wanted to talk to Bruce's wife, Cherie, to see if she had any information that could help. The detectives thanked Bruce's brother and his wife for coming and talking to them, and then the detectives got into their cars and headed towards town. It was well after midnight on November 9th, so several hours after Bruce's body had been discovered, when Petrovka and Shanlian stepped inside of Bruce and Cherie's house. The detectives stood in the living room, and Cherie sat on the couch. Her face was pale, almost gray, and she looked totally lost. Cherie had heard about what happened to Bruce from her mother-in-law, and then also a uniformed police officer had come by her house to confirm the news. But neither of them had told Cherie what actually happened. All they told her was that her husband was dead. Petrovka, and she seemed way more alert than she had since the detectives got there, and she asked Petrovka if they'd found a large amount of cash in Bruce's shirt pocket. Petrovka said they had not found any money, at which point Cherie explained that her husband always had like a couple of $1,000s in cash in that front anybody else knew this, and Cherie nodded vigorously. She said most of Bruce's friends and family knew about his habit of carrying around a whole bunch of money, and anybody who worked at the salvage yard would also know that too. The detective shared such links. The evidence the forensics officers had found made them pretty sure whoever killed Bruce knew him and knew the layout of the salvage yard office. So Petrovka asked Cherie if she could think of anyone who knew Bruce who also might have held out for him, or who might have just wanted to rob him. Cherie closed her eyes and thought for a second, and then she looked back up at Petrovka and told him that there actually was one man who could not stand her husband. He was a former employee at the salvage yard who actually she had once dated, and she said his name was John Hutchinson. He had a history of stealing from her husband. Petrovka thanked Cherie for her help and told her again how sorry he was for her loss. Then he and Shanlian headed outside to their car. Back at the sheriff's station, the two detectives talked about what Cherie had told them. They agreed that this John Hutchinson had seemed to fit the description for their looking for. Someone who was good in the salvage yard and who
Military papers.
history of
Should have a look, see what's going on here.
would certainly get quite known and also know that he carried thousands of dollars of cash on his person. So by the time the sun started to rise that morning, the detectives believed they had identified their very first major suspect. At 1:30 p.m. on November 9th, the day after Bruce's murder, Detective Shanlian led John Hutchinson into a small interrogation room at the sheriff's station. John was tall with a square jaw, a shaved head, and piercing eyes. People who knew him said he was good-looking enough to be a Hollywood star. Shanlian motioned for John to take a seat at a small table in the center of the room, and Shanlian then sat down across from him. The room was warm, and John was already sweating, but Shanlian figured that might have more to do with nerves than with the room's temperature. Shanlian was very calm, and he had an ability to put people at ease really quickly, which is why he'd been chosen to conduct this interview. Shanlian said he knew John was nervous, and that was totally normal. Shanlian said he was not going to try to trick John or get him to say anything that wasn't true. He just needed John to answer a few simple questions. John nodded and said he wanted to help. During the course of the interview, Shanlian got John to talk about his past relationship with Cherie, and he even got him to admit that he had, in fact, stolen auto parts from the salvage yard before. But John also said that he had owed Bruce money. When Shanlian heard that, he barely reacted, but inside, he thought that information made John an even more likely suspect. Then, Shanlian asked John if he owned any weapons. John said he was a hunter, so yes, he had several rifles and a shotgun. Now, at this point, Shanlian knew Bruce had been killed with a shotgun, so he leaned forward and started to press John a little bit harder. He asked a series of rapid-fire questions, keeping the focus on John's past with Cherie and his strained relationship with Bruce. But John kept insisting that, whatever issues he had with Bruce, none of them would have led John to kill Bruce. He even said that Bruce had always been pretty cool to him, and that he himself was probably to blame for the tension between them. Then, without prompting from Shanlian, John stood up and said, "Hey, can I take a lie detector test?" He'd seen on TV and movies that a lie detector test could prove he was innocent. Shanlian said he would have to make a quick call first, but he was pretty sure they could schedule a polygraph test for John that day.
According to this, the SS captured a resistance cell in the town last week. It must be Blue Viper's network.
That looked into the interrogation room where John was. And when Shanlian looked through that mirror, he saw something that totally threw him for a loop. John was sitting in the interrogation room alone, and then suddenly he just bent over and began sobbing. And the sobbing didn't stop, and it went on for so long that eventually Shanlian and the others decided that this guy must be having a total breakdown. Finally, after several minutes, it seemed like John was beginning to calm down, and so Shanlian stepped away from the mirror and went and scheduled the polygraph test, and then he returned to the mirror looking back into the interrogation room. By this point, John had managed to calm himself down a bit, but it was clear he just could not stop crying. Shanlian and the others had no idea if this guy was just totally racked with guilt over something he had done, or became even more convinced that they had found Bruce's killer. On November 13th, 1999, 5 days after Bruce's murder, members of the investigative team stood amongst Bruce's friends and family in a cemetery for Bruce's funeral. Bruce's casket was moving through the cemetery in the back. Bruce's
Aber er besorgt bestimmt die Informationen, die wir wollen.
Was wohl daheim gerade los? Hoffentlich. Es wird kalt. Je eher sie brechen, desto eher sind wir wieder in der Kaserne.
Mach dir keine allzu großen Hoffnungen. Wir müssen noch die Waffen aus ihren Verstecken holen. Das dauert.
Bruce had finally found the woman of his dreams, Cherie. Bruce had really come to this for him. Alien want to bring his story to justice. And you every deserves some sort of closure. Midtown Game suspect John Hutchinson and an fire. The detective thought
Got to secure my contact. Can't just leave them to die if they've been captured.
They didn't think that Bruce was innocent. Really couldn't be opposite. They thought this should show that John really did. They even brought him in. He again.
Guess I grabbed everything useful.
If the case in 1999, when the murder remains suspect. At that time, Detective Petrofsky had been training in the relatively new field of computer forensics. The investigative survey set up with data and evidence from computer devices potentially used in the crime. And Petrofsky had proven to be quite good at computer forensics. He had set his sights on working with capabilities in this new field. He made it clear to families and the rest of the investigative team that he was still fully committed to Bruce's case. He wanted to bring Bruce's story to justice. But as January 2000 passed by with still no more new evidence linking John Hutchinson's murder, Mr. Frostad Sherman began to worry that maybe a special case
Alright, this guy over here.
on February 17th, 2000,
And drop him.
Frostad was sitting in his desk.
Alright.
The police officer and listened to the officer under the line, he couldn't help but feel really confused. The police officer said he received a call from an attorney who worked in a small town in Missouri. That attorney had spoken to local law enforcement in that particular town. They told him they stumbled on site that they believed was somehow linked to Bruce Miller's murder in Michigan. So after the officer explained everything they could to the suspect, the prosecutor was feeling pretty excited, but also still feeling pretty confused. How could anything in this random community of the town be connected to this Michigan murder case he's been working on for months? But nonetheless, the prospect took forward.
Was für eine Aussicht. Sowas gibt's in Österreich nicht. Klar, Berge schon, aber kein Meer.
Petrofsky walked over to Shanley's desk and told him they might have a huge break in the Bruce Miller case. Petrofsky said he was going to book a flight to Missouri, and he would know more when he got back. The following day, Petrofsky was in Missouri, meeting with detectives and sitting in interviews regarding a suicide that had happened in this small town. And this suicide was the case that police believed was linked to Bruce's murder. Sure enough, by the time Petrofsky returned to Michigan a couple of days later, he was absolutely positive he knew who had killed Bruce and how they'd done it. Based on evidence collected from the scene of the suicide in Missouri and the murder scene at the salvage yard, and interviews conducted throughout the investigation into Bruce Miller's death, here is a reconstruction of what authorities believe happened on the night someone murdered Bruce Miller, November 8th, 1999. On that day, around 2 p.m., the killer pulled into a rest stop in Flint, Michigan. The killer stepped out of her car and stretched her legs. They had been driving non-stop for over 10 hours. After stretching, the killer walked across the parking lot to the rest stop station. They put a coin in, the number,
Happy trails, Hans.
walked over to a picket table, sat down, and waited. The air was cool, and the killer felt relaxed for the first time since they started driving earlier this morning. 2 minutes later, killers saw a car pull into the same rest stop parking lot they were in, and watched as the person did